Welcome. Assignment 1 for Cloud Web Application, student number 21708080. This is an Assignment 1 project called Wordle Style. It is a TypeScript and React application for creating phenome-based Wordle and word search activities. This is the project here. The purpose of the application is to let the user configure an activity, preview it in the browser, and export the activity as a standalone HTML game. So there we go. The generated game can be opened directly in the normal web browser without needing the Next.js application itself. I created the project using npx create next app as required by the assessment. The application uses the Next.js app router, React components, TypeScript and CSS for the interface. So for the folder structure, this is a folder structure. The application component is component based. Shared elements such as header, footer, navigation and reusable interfaces controls and separates the components rather than being repeated at every page. An example of the root layout contains the shared header and footer. Next.js then places the content of the current root between the shared components. The separated Wordle and word search components keep the logic independent and makes the project easier to maintain. So word search. So we go into source, into components, word search. So we open both of these. G. The word search field maintains the configuration using the React state. Each word contains the English version and phenome representation. The user can add and remove words when the data changes. React updates the live preview. The puzzle generation is handled separately from the interface. The generator creates a grid and attempts for placement each phenome word horizontally, vertically and diagonally. Words can appear in reverse directions. Once the words has been placed and any empty cells are filled with phenomes from available pool. Separating puzzle algorithms from the UI because the visual React components does not need to know exactly how the puzzle was generated. It receives the generated grid and displays it. For the word search playable, I use the user starts and finishes their selection. When the user drags across the cells, the program calculates a straight path between the starting and end cells. When the selection does finish, the selected coordinates are checked against stored coordinates of the generated words. If the selection matches the words, the cells are marked as found and matching word is updated from the word list. I use the pointer-based interaction so the game could be basic enough for the interaction that can support a mouse and touch devices rather than completing different versions of the game. So we'll minimize that, go back into Wordle, and then we'll open that. So in this one, the Wordle builder does work differently because of the use of the target phenome word. The phenome sequence is divided into individual phenome units. The user creates guesses using the interface for phenome, and when a guess is submitted, the game compares each phenome with the target. The correct phenome in the correct position receives the correct state. When a phenome exits elsewhere in the word receives the present state, a phenome that is not part of the word receives the absent state. This gives a familiar word or feedback, but the application phenomes rather than normal spelling. So we'll minimize that and we'll go back. So here we have the UI and themes. So for the HTML export, one of the parts that is important of the application is the HTML generator. For the Wordle and word search builders, the React applications, but the assessment requires for the final activity to be downloadable as standalone HTML file. To achieve this, I use the generator functions that build the complete HTML document as a string and then exported the file contains its structure in HTML. CSS styling, activity data and JavaScript game logic inside the same document. The program does create a JavaScript blob from the HTML string, generates a temporary browser URL and grammatically downloads the file. This does mean that no server is required for the playing of the exported game, where there's no external JavaScript or CSS dependencies required by the generated activity themes. So these are the themes. The application has also a settings page. The builder itself supports light, dark system appearance, so light and dark. I did separate the theme by generating activities. The generated game has a global CS theme that can be uploaded through settings. When the CSS theme can be uploaded, the application reads the style sheet as text and it does store the preference in the browser. When Wordle or word search is exported, the CSS is embedded directly into the HTML. The meaning of this would be that users can customize the appearance of generated activity while still maintaining the requirements of a single standalone file. The theme also uses the CSS custom properties, so colors and visual properties can be changed without rewriting the actual game logic. So this is the themes. Accessibility and usability, that's in UI. So we have the confetti here and activities. So, accessibility was also considered in the interface. I used the elements such as buttons, labels, navigation, headings, rather than relying on generic div elements. From the fields have associated labels, interactive controls have the variable states. The layouts were responsive, so builder changes from a multi-column desktop layout to a more compact mobile layout. I added how to play control to both games so users do not need to already understand how each activity works. The completion effects, including confetti, respect the reduced motion preferences so users are not forced to see unnecessary motion. So this is the confetti. This one. Trade-off. The trade-off was made by keeping the word data local rather introducing a database in this assignment. So that's in data. That's for known words. This is deliberate because assessment 1 is focused on the front end and the brief states that the database driven will be introduced later. However, I structured the word data as objects as predictable properties rather than scattering the individual strings throughout the components. The elements should make it easier to replace the local data with the database records later rejoining the game components. Overall, the goal was to separate the application into clear responsibilities. React and Next.js handle the builder interface and routing. Reusable components handle the shared UI. The game generator handles the puzzle logic, and the separate HTML generator functions create the standalone activities. The structure keeps the project maintainable while giving users a relatively simple workflow, configuration of the activity preview as it plays, and they play it and export it. This completes the main functionality of Wordle style for assessment for the cloud-based web application subject. So here is also the Git repository where all the files have been uploaded. So thank you, that concludes my presentation. This is the home page. So for Wordle style. So this is the Wordle, so guess the phoneme word. So we're doing chin, so submit guess. You can also play it with HTML, export it. This is where you look for the words. So TF, you look for the phoneme, sorry. See? It's highlighted when you get, and then the word is crossed out when you select the correct word. The About page is information about the project, and settings is light and dark mode. Thank you for viewing my presentation.